achieved by the complex process of generalizing from particular topics, of imaginatively schematizing the generalization, and finally by renewed comparison 25 of the imagined scheme with the direct experience to which it should apply. There is no justification for checking generalization at any particular stage. Each phase of generalization exhibits its own peculiar simplicities which stand out just at that stage, and at no other stage. There are simplicities connected with the motion of a bar of steel which are obscured if we refuse to abstract from the individual molecules, and there are certain simplicities concerning the behavior of men which are obscured if we speculative philosophy. 17. Refuse to abstract from the individual peculiarities of particular specimens. In the same way, there are certain general truths about the actual things in the common world of activity, and when attention is confined to the particular detailed mode of considering them. These general truths, involved in the meaning of every particular notion respecting the actions of things, are the subject matter for speculative philosophy. Philosophy destroys its usefulness when it indulges in brilliant feats of explaining away. It is then trespassing with the wrong equipment upon the field of particular sciences. Its ultimate appeal is to the general consciousness of what in practice we experience. Whatever thread of presupposition characterizes social expression throughout the various epochs of rational quotient must find its place in philosophic theory. Speculative boldness must be balanced by complete humility before logic, and before fact. It is a disease of philosophy when it is neither bold nor humble, but merely a reflection of the temperamental presuppositions of exceptional personalities. Analogously, we do not trust any recasting of scientific theory depending upon a single performance of an aberrant experiment unrepeated. The ultimate test is always widespread, recurrent experience, and the more general the rationalistic scheme, the more important is this final appeal. The useful function of philosophy is to promote the 26th most general systematization of civilized thought. There is a constant reactionalism and common sense. IT is the part of the special sciences to modify common sense. Philosophy is the welding of imagination and common sense into a restraint upon specialists, and also into an enlargement of their imagination. By providing the generic notions, philosophy should make it easier to conceive the infinite variety of specific instances which rest unrealized in the womb of nature. Chapter 2 to CA tutorials E+. Section I. 27. This chapter contains an anticipatory sketch of the primary notions which constitute the philosophy of organism. The whole of the subsequent discussion in these lectures has the purpose of rendering this summary intelligible, and of showing that it embodies generic notions inevitably presupposed in our reflective experience presupposed, but rarely expressed in explicit distinction. Four notions may be singled out from this summary, by reason of the fact that they involve some divergence from antecedent philosophical thought. These notions are, that of an actual entity, that of a prehension, that of a nexus, and that of a ontological principle. Philosophical thought has made for itself difficulties by dealing exclusively in very abstract notions, such as those of mere awareness awareness, mere private sensation, mere emotion, mere purpose, mere appearance, mere causation. These are the ghosts of the old faculties, banished from psychology, but still haunting metaphysics. There can be no mere togetherness of such abstraction. The result is that philosophical discussion is enmeshed in the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. One in the three notions actual entities, prehension, nexus and endeavor has been made to base philosophical thought upon the most concrete elements in our experience. Actual entities, also actual occasions, are the final real things, of which the world is made up. There is no going behind actual entities. To find anything R28 more real. They differ among themselves. God is an actual entity, and so is the most trivial cause of existence in far-off empty space. But, though there are gradations of importance, and diversities of function, yet in the principles which actuality broadens and extends general principle laid down by John Locke in his essay PK. 2. Ch. 23. Sec. 7t when he asserts that power is the great part of our complex ideas of substances. See the notion. 1. Cf. My Science and the Modern World, ch. 3. 18. The Categorical Scheme. 19 of substance is transformed into the actual entity, and the notion of power is transformed into the principle that the reasons for things are always to be found in the composite nature of definite actual entities, in the nature of God for reasons of the highest absoluteness, and in the nature of definite temporal actual entities for reasons which refer to a particular environment. The ontological principle can be summarized as actual entities, then no reason. Each actual entity is analyzable in an indefinite number of ways. In some modes of analysis, the component elements are more abstract than in other modes of analysis. The analysis of an actual entity into prehension is that mode of analysis which exhibits the most concrete elements in the nature of actual entities. This mode of analysis will be termed a division of the actual entity in question. Each actual entity is divisible in an indefinite number of ways, and each way of division yields its definite quota of prehension. A prehension reproduces in itself the general characteristics of an actual entity. It is referent to an external world, and in its essence would be said to have a vector character. It involves emotion, and purpose, and valuation, and causation. In fact, any characteristic of an actual entity is reproduced 29 in a prehension. It might have been a complete actuality, but, by reason of a certain incomplete partiality, a prehension is only a subordinate element in an actual entity. A reference to the complete actuality is required to give description what such a prehension is. Put it as in respect to its subjective form. This subjective form is determined by the subjective aim of further integration, so as to obtain the satisfaction of the completed subject. In other words, final causation and atomism are interconnected philosophical principles. With the purpose of obtaining a one-substance cosmology, prehensions are a generalization from Descartes' mental cogitations, and from Locke's ideas, to express the most concrete mode of analysis applicable to every grade of individual actuality. Descartes and Locke maintained a two-substance ontology. Descartes explicitly, Locke by implication. Descartes, the mathematical physicist, emphasized his account of corporeal substance, and Locke, the physician and the sociologist, confined himself to an account of mental substance. The philosophy of organism, in its scheme for one type of actual entities, adopts the view that Locke's account of mental substance embodies, in a very special form, a more penetrating philosophic description than does Descartes' account of corporeal substance. Nevertheless, Descartes' account must find its place in the philosophic scheme. On the whole, this is the moral to be drawn from the monadology of Leibniz. His monads are best conceived as generalizations of contemporary notions of mentality. The contemporary notions of physical bodies only enter into his philosophy subordinately and derivatively. The philosophy of organism endeavors to hold the balance more evenly, but it does start with a generalization of Locke's account of mental operation. 20. The speculative scheme. Actual entities involve each other by reason of their prehensions of each other. Individual facts of the togetherness of actual entities. In other words, philosophy is explanatory of abstraction, and not of concreteness. It is by reason of their instinctive grasp of this ultimate truth that, in spite of much association with arbitrary fancifulness and atavistic mysticism, types of Platonic philosophy retain their abiding appeal. They seek the forms in the facts. Each fact is more than its form, and each form participates throughout the world of facts. The definiteness of fact is due to its form, but the individual fact is a creature, and creativity is the ultimate behind all forms, inexplicable by forms, and conditioned by its creatures. Section 2. The categories. The category of the ultimate. 2. Categories of existence. 3. Categories of explanation, i.e., categorical obligation. It is the purpose of the discussion in these lectures to make clear the meaning of these categories, their applicability, and their adequacy. The course of the discussion will disclose how very far they are from satisfying this ideal. Every entity should be a specific instance of one category of existence. Every explanation should be a specific instance of categories of explanation, and every obligation shall be a specific instance of categorial overga. In this connection I may refer to the second chapter of my book The Principle. PLE of Relativity, Cambridge University Press, T. 1922. The Kate Gloria Scheme, 21 Tions. The category of the ultimate expresses the general principle presupposed in the three more special categories. The category of the ultimate. Creativity, many, one, are the ultimate notions involved in the meaning of the synonymous terms, thing, being, entity. These three notions complete the category of the ultimate and are presupposed in all the more special categories. The term, one, does not stand for the integral number one, which is a complex special notion. It stands for the general idea underlying like the indefinite article, erin, and the definite article, the, and the demonstrative, this or that, and the relative, which or what or how. It stands for the singularity of an entity. The term, many, presupposes the term, one, and the term, one, presupposes the term, many. The term, many, conveys the notion of disjunctive diversity. This notion is an essential element in the concept of being. There are many, being, in disjunctive diversity. Creativity is the universal of universals characterizing ultimate matter of fact. It is that ultimate principle by which the many, which are the building universe disjunctively, become the one actual occasion, which is the universe conjunctively. It lies in the nature of things that the many enter into complex unity. Creativity is the principle of novelty. An actual occasion is a novel entity diverse from any entity in the many, which it unifies. Thus, creativity introduces novelty into the content of the many, which are the 32 universals disjunctively. This creative advance is the application of this ultimate principle, creativity, to each novel situation which it originates. Is a generic term covering the various special ways in which various sorts of entities are in any one actual occasion. Thus, together, presupposes the notions, creativity, many, one, identity, and diversity. The ultimate metaphysical principle is the advance from disjunction to conjunction, creating a novel entity other than the entities given in disjunction. The novel entity is at once the togetherness of the many, which it finds, and also it is one among the disjunctive many, which it leaves. It is a novel entity, disjunctively among the many entities which it synthesizes. The many become one, and are increased by one. In their natures, entities are disjunctively many, in process of passage into conjunctive unity. This category of the ultimate replaces Aristotle's category of primary substance. Thus the production of novel togetherness is the ultimate notion embodied in the term impression. These ultimate notions of production of novelty and of concrete togetherness are inexplicable either in terms of higher universals or in terms of components participating in the con. 22. The speculative scheme. Present. The analysis of the components abstract from the compression. The theory of categories of addition. subjective forms, are private matters of fact. Eternal objects are pure potentials for the specific determination of fact, or forms of definiteness. These propositions are matters of fact and potential for discrete determination, or impure potentials for the specific determination of matters of fact, are theories. These multiplicities are pure disjunctions of diverse entities. These contrasts are modes of synthesis of entities in one prehension, are patterned entities. Among these 8 categories of existence, actual entities and eternal objects stand out with a certain extreme finality. The other types of existence have a certain intermediate character. The 8th category includes an indefinite progression of categories, as we proceed from contrast to contrast to contrast, and on indefinitely to higher grades of contrast. The categories of explanation. There are 27 categories of explanation, like that the actual world is a process, and that the process is the becoming of actual entities. Thus actual entities are creatures. They are also termed actual occasions. That in the becoming of an actual entity, the potential unity of many entities in disjunctive diversity actual and non-actual requires the real unity of the one actual entity, so that the actual entity is the real compressive of many potentials. That in the becoming of an actual entity, subjective form, propositions, multiplicities, and contrasts, all can become, there are no non-eternal objects. I.e. that the potentiality for being an element in a real compressence of many entities into one actually, the one general metaphysical character attaching to all entities, actual and non-actual, and that every item in its universe is involved in each compressence. In other words, it belongs to the nature of a being, that it is a potential for every becoming. This is the principle of relativity. That no two actual entities originate from an item 34 tickle universe, where the difference between the two universes only consists in the K-Boreal scheme. 23 from actual entities, included in one and not in the other, and in the subordinate entities which each actual entity introduces into the world. The eternal objects are the same for all actual entities. This indetermination, rendered determinate in the real compressance, is the meaning of potentiality. It is a conditioned indetermination, and is therefore called a real potentiality. That an eternal object can be described only in terms of its potentiality for ingression into the becoming of actual entities, and that its analysis only discloses other eternal objects. It is a pure potential. The term ingression refers to the particular mode in which the potentiality of an eternal object is realized in a particular actual entity, contributing to the definiteness of that actual entity. That two descriptions are required for an actual entity, A. One which is analytical of its potentiality for objectification, in the becoming of other actual entities, and B. Another which is analytical of the process which constitutes the